Hello, thank you so much again for having me on the NOCD channel. Being able to talk about OCD with you guys over the last couple of weeks has been so fulfilling. Seeing so many people struggle with the same thing as you are, definitely it's not a good feeling to know that other people are struggling. However, it does feel less alienating, it does feel less isolating. I'm talking about important topics that are so taboo and people don't want to talk about with OCD for the fear of judgment. I think it's been wonderful. So that's why this week I did want to talk about relationships. Experiences in my relationship that I didn't know were OCD, except this whole time it was literally relationship OCD, also known as ROCD, which a lot of people do struggle with and have no idea about. When I started therapy, relationship OCD was actually one of the first things that I've talked about. It can be relevant for friendships, other types of relationships in your life. For me specifically, it was about my romantic relationship that I have been in for many, many years now, which is a very safe, loving, and healthy relationship. Yet OCD would try to sabotage that for me in many instances, and I couldn't figure out why my brain was doing this to me constantly. And I felt like there was something deeply, deeply wrong with me for a very long time until I chose to talk about it in ERP therapy. If you didn't know, ROCD is a type of obsessive compulsive disorder. It specifically affects intimate relationships. It's intrusive, unwanted thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive behaviors, compulsions related to the relationship. We're getting vulnerable today. All right. For starters, I have been very open about how one of the biggest triggers for me is feeling just right. Things tend to need to feel just right for me, and if they don't, it causes a lot of distress. How do you possibly know if the person is the right one for you? That was extremely difficult for me because so many people would always talk about relationships and be like, oh my God, I knew that this person was the one. I knew that they were the right person for me. And when you know, you know. And I'm like, oh my God, what if I don't know? What if I literally don't know? How do I know? I am 20 years old. How do I know? And clearly, if I'm not feeling 110% certain about something, then clearly it must be the wrong thing for me, which would give me so much anxiety and keep me up for so many nights. And then I also obviously could not talk to my partner about this because I didn't want him to know that I was feeling insecure about the relationship, even though nothing was wrong. And then I also couldn't talk to my friends and family about it because that would feel like, oh no, what if they think that something's wrong with my relationship? And I do not want them to feel like something was wrong with my relationship. And so I would just bottle it all up inside. Except I would let it out in small spurts where I was seeking assurance from others, where I would sneak in ways to ask my friends and my family, like, do you guys like him? Like, do you guys think that he's the right one? Like, do you think he's good? Like, do you like him a lot? Like, do you like him more than my last partner? Like, do you think he's good? Like, do you think he's the one for me? Like, do you think that I should be with this person forever? Like, literally looking for assurance from these people who shouldn't really have a say in my relationship because they're not in my relationship. But I was asking for validation from everyone around me, and nobody knew at the time what I was doing or what was going on because they didn't know I had OCD. I didn't know I had OCD. And so I would get that reassurance from them until they got tired of giving me answers, of course, and they were like, we're not answering that anymore. But that feeling of constantly worrying and wondering if this person is the one for me and wanting to basically sabotage the relationship and potentially at times end it just because I was so concerned whether or not this person was the one for me was extremely distressing. The thought of soulmates was extremely distressing. Basically anything that was definitive and I didn't have the answer to felt so suffocating. It was to the point where I like literally went to an astrologer and I was like asking, like, is this person right for me? Like, this is his signs. This is his sun and moon sign. Like, can you let me know if this is the right person for me? Because I was so desperate for answers and for approval. And whenever somebody in public, like a random person would be like, you guys make such a good couple, I would feel like an immense surge of relief and like a high almost, because I was like, oh, clearly I am in the right relationship because this random stranger told us that we look cute. And the astrologist said that our sun signs match up. So clearly I'm okay. I'm in the right relationship right now, even though I was happy in the relationship. I felt respected. We have great communication. It was these determining factors of like astrologists or random people's opinions that meant way more to me than anything else. Monitoring and checking your own feelings is also a sign of relationship OCD. I would constantly ask myself questions like, do I feel love? Like, do I feel like I am in love? Like basically like these feelings that I knew I already felt, but doing a temp check within myself, asking myself if I look at other people, asking if I have doubts about my partner. These things would make me feel terrible about myself, especially the like, did I look at anybody else? Like there was a time where I could not make eye contact with other men without feeling like I was cheating on my partner. Even if that meant like I was making eye contact with like a family member who was a man. Because in my head I was like, I'm cheating. I'm literally cheating. I am a bad partner. I am the worst. Should end this relationship right now because I am a bad person and I am a bad partner. It was that much. Being alone in the same room with a man, extremely difficult for me. It was exhausting. It was really, really exhausting. Like, you know when you go out with a friend and like their boyfriend or something and you guys all go out to dinner and my friend would go to the bathroom and so I'm stuck there with her boyfriend. I'm like, I just committed the most heinous act. I just cheated on my boyfriend. I am literally going to burn in eternal hell. And I couldn't share these feelings with anyone. I can't obviously tell my friend because there's a rational part of me that's like, okay, well, that's not, you didn't actually do anything. You guys just spoke to each other like civil human beings. You guys are friends. And I couldn't tell my partner that, you know, I felt like it was so extremely isolating and embarrassing because I could look from the outside in and see kind of how ridiculous these thoughts were, but it didn't help that they kept happening and they kept coming up and these feelings kind of didn't ever go away until I started ERP. Comparing your relationships to ones that you see in movies or TV or social media, oh my God. Social media relationships for me were really, really difficult. Comparing myself and my relationship to other people online, influencers who obviously like curate their relationships and curate what they decide to show on camera, I would compare everything. I'm like, see, clearly they're happier than I am. They're much, much happier. They're in a much happier relationship. They are clearly meant for one another. And the internet, it seems to agree, clearly my relationship is bad. It's wrong. I would feel that way watching TV shows. I would feel that way watching movies. I would feel that watching other friends and their relationships. And I would secretly think to myself like, oh my God, they are so much happier than we are. Obviously, they are clearly meant to be. I am going to compare every minute, minuscule little detail of our relationships to one another, even though I am not in their relationship and I cannot actually like live inside their heads and I don't know actually what's going on. But that was my thought process. Like that was just how I thought at the time. And that was a daily thing, a very, very, very daily thing. I would also try and like think about experiences and times where I felt really good with my partner to try and like calm myself down, especially in a time where I was feeling really horrible, feeling like my chest was squeezing, feeling like I couldn't breathe and my OCD was at its worst. I'm like looking for any reassurance possible and I would like remember memories with my partner and be like, oh my God, we were happy. Like, look, like this is proof. Like we were happy. We have a good relationship. Like everything is okay. For me, it was really difficult being someone who was in an abusive relationship in the past and staying longer than I should have. I almost didn't trust myself anymore that I knew when to leave a bad relationship. I was like, clearly I am not competent enough to leave a bad relationship. Clearly I can't trust myself. So if I'm stuck in one again, I'll have no idea about it. Clearly I need somebody else's approval and I need somebody else to quite literally pull me out of it themselves. So that was my thought process with asking everyone else around me what they thought of my partner and to give their stamp of approval for it because I didn't trust myself. And that's what, you know, having OCD is a lot about, is this lack of trust in yourself and decision making, especially for me, and especially when that revolves around the idea of just right and making sure that this is like the right person for you. That can be so detrimental and extremely unrealistic to begin with. I would struggle to read like romance books, watch anything romantic on TV because of my constant comparison to these fictional characters. And I didn't understand like why it was so distressing. So I like would avoid these things altogether because it just made me so upset and uncomfortable. And in full transparency, when I found out what relationship OCD was, I felt a lot of relief, but like a lot of, well, damn, because I wasted a whole lot of time worrying about this thing that I really should not have been worrying about. It was a difficult thing for me to talk to my partner about because I did not want him to feel like there was anything wrong with him. And it's very hard to explain to somebody who does not have OCD what these feelings and emotions are, because it is a hard thing to grasp. You know, if you're really good friends with someone and your friend would come and confide in you, hey, I'm unsure about my relationship, you want to be as supportive as possible to your friend. But how are you necessarily supportive to that friend when giving them reassurance is actually negative and not a thing that will help them in the long run? And so it was a really, really difficult thing to navigate, like with a lot of my close friends. My partner himself in therapy, the worst of it was about 5 years ago. And to give some context, I'm still in the relationship going on 8 years. I feel happy, I feel loved, I feel in love, and I feel more secure in our relationship than ever without constantly seeking reassurance, questioning myself, worrying about if this person is the one or my soulmate, worrying if I am cheating, comparing my relationships to other relationships, fictional or real, trying to recall good memories about this relationship. It has gotten so much better with ERP. I have to emphasize that. I feel like my relationship has been doing amazing. I literally moved recently to close the gap of our long distance relationship, and things have been going great. Just goes to show, like, with ERP, things could go better. I worry sometimes that if I didn't start exposure and response prevention therapy, that maybe I wouldn't be in this relationship anymore, that maybe I would self-sabotage and end it because I would worry that I will never find the one and that every single relationship I am ever in is the wrong one. There is no point in worrying or thinking about that though, because this is the timeline of my life that I'm in, and I'm so grateful that I am in ERP. I'm so grateful that I have done ERP and that I feel so confident within myself. The first step was really truly getting the diagnosis and doing the work along with that. But I've talked to many of my friends who have had similar feelings, and it's very sad and difficult to navigate because it's not something that I would wish upon anybody, especially with how hard it is to confide in someone else to talk about it, because there is that fear of judgment that you're gonna go through. So even talking about it like online can be really difficult. But this is something that people feel towards not even necessarily romantic relationships, but it can also be with friendships. There have been many times I see personally now, after, you know, being treated for OCD, how it also sprinkled into my friendships as well. Like worrying if my values match my friends' values and obsessing over that and wondering if they are the right friend for me. Are they really my best friend? Doubting if somebody is really your friend, constantly worrying about whether or not you have said the right thing. Like, I would go home from a hangout and literally have what I like to call now hangxiety. It's not necessarily the anxiety you get after a hangover. It is the anxiety that you get after a hangout with friends, because you worry if you said the wrong thing. You repeat conversations in your head over and over again, try to dissect them, making sure that you said an okay thing, having very rigid and high expectations of your friends, as well as having intrusive thoughts about your friends that are very, very disturbing. You might have relationship OCD if you have caught yourself saying to your friends, "Are you mad at me?" This is something that haunts me. If I had a nickel for every single time that I said, "Are you mad at me?" to my partner or to my friends, oh my God, I would be so rich. I would make my friends almost angry at me. I would make them angry with me because of the amount of times that I would say, "Are you mad at me?" This constant excessive reassurance seeking. Do you like me? Do you agree with me? Is everything okay? Are we okay? Avoidance can also be a part of it. Avoiding or dropping friends very abruptly because of a perceived fault in the relationship or an obsessive thought about it, as well as compulsive confessing, something that I struggle with, which is being overly honest with your friend about your feelings, even when it could hurt them, for the sake of feeling that you need to be honest at all times. These are all things that have impacted my friendships and relationships around me. And I think to myself how much better of a friend I could have been, and also how much better I could have been as a partner had I maybe started ERP sooner, or had I known that I had OCD sooner, but I was just so afraid of the thought of getting diagnosed or talking to someone or being honest about my feelings, just for me to go into ERP, and I am not being judged at all, and it is being completely beneficial for me. It's just so interesting how things like that work. I was so fearful of ever opening up about my thoughts and feelings about these things, and then I literally talked about it in therapy, and then it got better because I was given the tools to help make them better. And now here I am talking about it on the internet, encouraging you guys, if you guys are feeling similarly, to maybe go out and seek help for that, because there is an alternative to all this, and that is getting better. I cannot emphasize that enough how much getting a diagnosis for OCD has benefited me. Once I was able to get the tools, not only have I noticed it, but all of my friends and family, and of course my partner as well, has noticed how much ERP has benefited all of our relationships and myself since starting ERP, which is so ironic because I thought that many of these thoughts that I had, I would literally take to my grave because they are so embarrassing. And then you find out that there's so many more people like you, but you have no idea because they're also feeling the same way, where they're feeling so incredibly scared and embarrassed to talk about their thoughts. OCD basically made me feel like I was a terrible person for many years of my life. For basically until I was like 21, 22 years old, OCD convinced me that I was the worst person alive and living on this earth, and the worst possible girlfriend, partner, friend, daughter, everything. That's not to say I'm completely immune to those thoughts now, but it's like a hell of a lot better now, and I don't know what I would do had I not had access to ERP truly. Valentine's Day is among us. For all of you in relationships, seeing other relationships online can be very triggering. Comparing ourselves to other people, dating, eye contact with your friend's boyfriend. And I just want to make it abundantly clear that you are not alone if you are also struggling with a similar thing, because as am I. I did for many years, and I will be continuing to fight the fight against OCD. If any of the things that I have said resonated with you and made you think, that kind of sounds like me, that kind of feels a little bit like it hit too close to home, please consider checking out NOCD, where you can literally book a call with a licensed ERP trained therapist and talk about what you were going through judgment free, and also be on the road to getting better, because I'm telling you, shit does get better. Thank you so much for giving me a space to open up about things that are extremely vulnerable, things that are not easy to talk about in the slightest, and also being so extremely supportive. If you guys don't know, my name is Nicole Rafiee. I make content on the internet, and sometimes that does happen to be about my OCD, and I'm very passionate about destigmatizing it, because I wish that there were more people talking about their experiences with OCD, because maybe, just maybe, I would have gotten a diagnosis and help a lot sooner. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you so much for having me on the NOCD channel for the last 3 weeks. It has been an absolute pleasure. Happy soon to be Valentine's Day. Take care of yourself, and don't love OCD. This is gonna be censored out. Okay. Thank you, NOCD.